Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fortnightly meeting of the ClusterAPI working group Node Bootstrapping. We have passed on the last few meetings after the summer vacation, but we're now back. And we have Alice joining. Amazing. Just in time when we started the recording. Thank you so much for joining on short notice. I'm just doing my intro speech of this meeting, and then I'll walk you through the things. All right. As a ClusterAPI working group, we're part of ClusterAPI, which is part of Kubernetes, which is part of the CNCF, and as such, we adhere to the CNCF code of conduct. Basically, be nice to each other, treat others how you yourself want to be treated. And if you find someone just doesn't stop talking, like me right now, and you want to say something, just use the raise hand feature, and we'll make sure that you get the mic. All right. I see Bipin. Is it Bipin or Bipin?
You're correct the first time, Bipin.
Bipin. Nice.
Yeah.
And Alice joined us. I'm Thilo from the Flatcar project. Let's do a quick round of intros because the two of you are new. Alice, you want to start?
Yeah, so I recently joined CoreOS team with Bipin. Before I was keyboard maintainer. Yeah, now working on confidential cluster and probably copy in the near future.
Nice. Bipin?
Bipin, do you want to go?
Yep. I work with Red Hat on the CoreOS team. I'm looking forward to work with the Cluster API and the Ignition support stuff.
Nice. It's always great to meet folks who work on CoreOS. We have a few touch points, and we're thoroughly enjoying the collaboration with a few folks. So that's amazing. All right. Let me share the agenda. And let me paste the link to the agenda in the chat. So there's kind of a section in the agenda where you can note yourself as participant. Would be cool if you could do that for this meeting. Here we go. I'll do the same. Awesome. All right.
Thilo, I was asking if this meeting is usually well attended or is just
No. This is what it is. So it turns out even in the even in the cluster API world, where there's actually only need for special purpose operating systems like Fedora CoreOS, Red Hat CoreOS, or Flatcar, people revert to using Ubuntu most of the time. So most of the stuff is almost hardwired to cloud in it. And we had quite a challenging time introducing Ignition v2 to cluster API in the first place. And so part of and usually a few other Microsoft folks joined after the summer vacation period. We lost a few folks, and I'm still scrambling on my end to get folks motivated to join once again. But the good news is we actually brought the whole state of what we're doing to a point before the summer vacation where people can, I would say, relatively easily jump in and build on top. So we were trying to kind of wrap things up to identify work streams and yeah. So with that said, let me share my screen. Here we go. All right. So this is the agenda doc. And here we go. And so I want to give you a brief walkthrough in how this all started and where we are. All right. So the whole story started when we were trying to bump the Ignition version in Cluster API to v3, which isn't that big of an endeavor, right? But because of the way Cloud Init was hardwired when we started introducing Ignition in the first place, and the kind of expectations that come with that in the Cluster API code base, bringing in Ignition support was pretty messy back in the day, and it turned out to be a maintenance burden for the Cluster API core maintainers over the long term. So their ask on us, and basically on anyone requiring Ignition support, was to do a clean refactoring of the Bootstrap provider parts that use Ignition or Cloud Init. And so they recommended we use the provider pattern because that's a pattern that is used across Cluster API, and that so Cluster API has made really good experiences with that. And so we started working on that. And if you scroll up in the agenda document, there's like housekeeping and links, useful links people can visit to see like the state of the work. And so currently we have two kind of work streams going on. The first, and this is, everything is about separating kubeadm Ignition as a Bootstrap provider from kubeadm Cloud Init, because currently it's like one big provider. That's kubeadm Ignition plus Cloud Init, and we want to separate them. And so the first repository that's interesting is the new up-and-coming Bootstrap provider kubeadm Ignition, and that is basically for bootstrapping nodes with kubeadm that take Ignition config. And we're relatively free in what we do in this repository, because this is basically our Bootstrap provider. Now, you might see that this repo is in the Flatcar GitHub organization. It doesn't really have any like strong background. There, of course, is an association with Flatcar, but it could as well be in the Red Hat CoreOS or the Fedora CoreOS GitHub org. We are also very low threshold with giving people access to that repo in particular. Like if you want to maintain admin or commit access, that's no problem at all. They'll just add you. And the thought here is, if we're going to collaborate on this, we probably want to work with branches rather than forks, because that makes your work and your life a lot easier. So again, this is the
Tilo,
new... Go ahead. Yeah.
one question. Why it's, I mean, I guess I understand why it's in Flatcar right now, but why not moving this into with the alongside copy?
We will. We absolutely will.
Okay.
But since technically this is a new provider, we need to go through the regular Kubernetes mature process, right?
I see.
We're trying to stay as close to CNCF and Kubernetes requirements as we can, and the whole repo is basically structured this way. So the aim is to get this merged into the Kubernetes SIG GitHub org as soon as we got it working.
I have another question that is not related to the Bootstrap. So when I was looking at the code of copy, and so they are using Ignition, a Golang package from Flatcar. The problem was that you only have support for V2. I think it was until Ignition 2.4.
Yeah.
Do you plan as well to add 3 or
no? Because that
okay.
the fun part is we are not using that repo anymore.
I see.
Like in the Flatcar org, the Ignition repo exists only for one reason, and that reason is ClusterAPI. Flatcar uses Ignition upstream from the CoreOS org directly.
Okay.
And we're actually collaborating with forks.
Yeah, that was my further question. If it was a problem to move to Ignition from CoreOS.
Yeah, and I mean the ultimate goal is to have our Ignition kubeadm Bootstrap provider use the CoreOS repo, right?
I see.
As a source. So this is all just legacy what we're looking at right now. But it's a very good question. You're making a very good point. All right. Now the second half, just assume that we have our our Ignition Bootstrap provider is somewhat working, but we need to integrate it with upstream, right? Because that is the actual refactoring work. Like working with core ClusterAPI upstream project and making the kubeadm Bootstrap provider aware that there are multiple providers that implement this. And so that work is going on here. This is a fork of ClusterAPI. And so we've started to set the foundations, but it's, as you see, we're a little behind, right? But we've started to set the foundations for the separation here. And so this is the other work stream, right? This will go straight into ClusterAPI as a PR, and it will use our new and shiny Ignition kubeadm Bootstrap provider. The default implementation will remain the kubeadm Cloud Bootstrap provider because that's what upstream asked us for, and that's what their development basically aims at. But it doesn't really matter anymore as soon as we have the provider stack working, because where ClusterAPI just pulls its providers, it's a matter of configuration, and people just really don't notice. And the last kind of bit of information I have, and that is interesting because you said you were a KubeVirt maintainer. Now, let me check something real quick. 1 second. Okay. In the ClusterAPI documentation, if you check developer docs, then that's also something we contributed just to even make development on Flatcar with their default development environment possible. I think they're using Tilt, right? Developer guides.
We use kind with KubeVirt for testing.
Yeah, and that is required for operating systems like Flatcar and Fedora CoreOS, just because we provision and configure the node very early in the bootstrapping process, right? So it wouldn't even work. So their default environment is Docker, and Ignition just doesn't run in the Docker container image boot process. So we've added documentation around using, I just failed to find it right now. Johanna, who actually built that, would be the better person
I
here.
think the 4.4, 4.1.
4.1?
Yeah, the rapid development with
You're
KubeVirt.
right. Yes, I was right. I was right there. Thank you. Yeah, so this is basically stuff that we've been using and that we contributed to the docs to just make the development workflow work. And that's what I meant. But this is basically for anyone curious about those topics. The foundations are there for you folks to pick them up and to jump on them. It's just that on our end, the contributions have dwindled a little, and I'm still in the process of reviving things.
Yeah, so actually I exactly followed those README at the beginning when I was trying CoreOS with and that's where I noticed that CoreOS was basically not booting up correctly and complaining about the Ignition version. So this is where everything started. And Bipin is trying right now to make it working with Flatcar and see and get
Nice. And I mean, it would be totally cool if you could make it work with Flatcar and CoreOS at the same time, right? So there's even more value in contributing it.
Yeah, the problem is so maybe something that you can try on our side would be to try your bootstrapper with CoreOS. But there is, I mean, at least we should test if Ignition doesn't play anymore. But there is another piece that is missing from CoreOS side, that it's building the image with the kubeadm and kubectl and kubelet. So
That,
there is the image builder side
yeah.
missing as well.
To be entirely honest, I firmly believe that there are cleaner ways to provision Kubernetes on special purpose operating systems like Flatcar and
Mm-hmm.
Fedora CoreOS than image builder. And yeah, we did go the image builder path, which basically introduces separate problems downstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you now have baked together a operating system release and a Kubernetes version. So if you want to support multiple operating system releases and multiple Kubernetes versions, you have an exploding version metrics. And you need to host all those images somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So what we
So usually how OpenShift basically works is that it has Podman and usually pull images that have all kubelet stuff and install that. But I don't know how complicated it is to reproduce. To reproduce with Podman, if it would be possible to write some Podlet with Ignition and try to install Kubelet with that. And
just out of
this, in
curiosity,
my opinion, should be the cleanest.
I have a nice alternative for you for this. Give me a second. I'm trying to listen and capture the notes at the same time.
I can write something while you.
Okay, I'll pass on right after the second topic that you had, image builder,
Mhm.
work not done yet. But all right. Just out of curiosity, what provider are you focusing on mainly? Like what runtime environment are you aiming for, like as your first to support?
You mean for create a time cluster or
No, for actually deploying somewhere. Is it
KubeVirt
Kubert?
initially?
Okay. Then you're there because that's implemented. And then how about OpenStack? You want to support OpenStack at some point?
I don't know. I
Okay.
guess so. Let me give you some background where we started looking at copy. So as I mentioned in the introduction, I'm working on confidential cluster, and part of the work would be to like watch copy machines. That's why we were trying to have a development environment built with KubeVirt.
Oh, right.
That's why
Okay.
we.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So
Okay, then.
there is less interest from Reddit side on the bootstrapper because basically OpenShift they have their own bootstrapper that is
Mhm.
tied to OpenShift. That's why Reddit is not very present right now into this scope. But for us as CoreOS, as part of CoreOS, very interested at the upstream part also work with. I mean that copy works for also for
Yeah.
with CoreOS.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
So I took a long.
No, that's good.
I
That's
give you
actually
some
giving this.
background.
No, this is really helpful. Understanding this background actually helps me a lot. The reason I brought up OpenStack is
Mhm.
because I was talking about an alternative way of provisioning Kubernetes, not using image builder at all, but using plain Fedora CoreOS or plain Flatcar images as they are released on the release
Yeah.
servers. And we do that for OpenStack, and we introduced that work to the OpenStack folks, I think, 2 years ago, and they just loved it.
Mhm.
And of course, you might have like closer connections to them because they're also Red Hat. So I'm gonna show you how we do it. This is a
Okay.
provisioning template for Flatcar on the OpenStack provider. And so what we do is we use a mechanism called systemd sysext to
Yeah.
pull in basically a full-blown Kubernetes of kubelet and kubeadm and all of the tools at provisioning time. So it
Mhm.
is composed into the image when it is being provisioned. If you're looking at confidential virtual machines, that isn't really a deal breaker because these can be measured as well and signed and everything. So the
We are not so far.
come again?
We are not so far, but yeah,
No,
it's
just saying,
funny that you mentioned.
just
Yeah.
just by going into that direction, you're not kind of, impeding your own way down the road. Because all of that works and is actually available in systemd nowadays as we speak. This is consumed. So it's not Flatcar specific because Kubernetes is statically compiled and not linked to the host. You could technically use it on Fedora CoreOS, but you will run into issues with SE Linux because Fedora CoreOS is differently labeled. However, for our dear friend Timothy Revier has taken care of that for you, and he's actually maintaining a SysEx repository for specifically Fedora CoreOS. Let me see if sources on GitHub. And that's not what I was looking for. Fedora SysEx. Okay. So you might be able to, I don't know if they have Kubernetes, of course they have. So you might be able to just reuse some of this stuff or to reshape it in the way that you need. And so this is actually being hosted right here on GitHub. So you can even, because you need like an HTTP source to pull this from, right, during provisioning time. So you can just ingest whatever SysEx you need, right, from the releases. So all of this is set, all of the image building and image composition has been solved for you should you decide to use SysEx instead of image builder. And I really cannot recommend image builder. It's a nice project. It was a great solution at its time, but it's not nice anymore. Like it starts with that it needs to boot the virtual machine in order to make run its installers, right?
They use
Yes,
Ansible
yes.
to
And that is a
install.
deal breaker for Fedora because then you had your first boot and you can't be configured anymore. Same for Flatcar. So we needed some ugly workarounds to make this work. And trust me, SysEx are just so much nicer. Talk to Timothy. He has the whole story. He'll probably help you along.
Yeah. So let's suppose that, so I think what you're suggesting is that instead of spending time on image builder, it will be much easier to build to install Kubernetes using on Fedora CoreOS using SysEx.
Correct.
So let's suppose that we have done this. The next step, as far as I understand, could be that we could use your Bootstrapper to use Ignition with SysEx, right? Instead of
Not quite, because we have a Ignition v2 compatibility mode built in Flatcar, but that's not present in Fedora CoreOS. That's a very lean and small patch we maintain on top of the Ignition app we are using from upstream. So I think only moving to Ignition v3 would enable Fedora CoreOS to be part of ClusterAPI. And by the way, we can make this part of the very first step of that Bootstrap provider, right? Like we can introduce the new kubeadm Ignition Bootstrap provider with v3 support. That would be fine. But it's a little more work than just integrating with ClusterAPI.
No, but I was even thinking after this work is done, because as far as I understand right now, ClusterAPI derive Ignition from Cloud Init, and you need to have basically already Kubernetes installed. But if we have Ignition with SysEx and basically the installation of Kubernetes, we could basically take Fedora CoreOS and so that we don't need to customize or build. If this is our ultimate goal, it looks very nice. if you could generate using your Bootstrapper an ignition with the Kubernetes installation.
Yeah. That's what we actually. So we started while we started with OpenStack. We converted all of the cluster API vendors that we support to SysEx, and that is the recommended way to provision Flatcar with cluster API nowadays.
Okay. I guess we need to take a look at your OpenStack work. Yeah.
Just chat with the folks. If I recall correctly, Mathieu, who did the work back in the day, was convincing enough that they even, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but they converted their whole CI to Flatcar. So they were testing their PRs with the Flatcar integration because it was so painless and seamless.
I see.
All right. Awesome. I'm really looking forward to get a little more traction into this again. Would be amazing if we could join forces and make this work.
Just to help you concretely, because I think you already have, I don't know, most of the work seems to me work in progress at least. So yeah, I mean, if we start, we start from scratch. So what's in your opinion? I mean, I'm asking you how we can help basically.
So it might look like work in progress, but it's actually pretty stale because most of the work that we were doing in those two work streams, so the kubeadm ignition provider and our refactoring work for core cluster API hasn't seen any changes in the last months. So that would actually be a good point to start. I mean, for the time being, you would probably need to use Flatcar for the development. But as soon as we have like the first kind of spike where we have all the pieces connected, we could convert the kubeadm ignition provider to Ignition v3, and we could integrate with Fedora CoreOS as well.
Yeah. Do you see any space for us to help, or
Come again?
do you see any space for us any room for us to help, or?
You can basically jump right in and take over these two repositories. You probably want to fork this one because we did not. Oh wait, no, not this one. Sorry. So you probably want to fork this one, which is in Johannan's personal GitHub space. This is the refactoring work of core cluster API. And then combine it with the cluster API bootstrap provider kubeadm ignition. If you put your GitHub usernames in the Slack channel, I'll give you maintainer access to the repo so you can directly work in this repo. And see if you can get the stack running for you. If you run into any issues or if you need any pointers, I can get Johanna probably to join a call and provide assistance and mentor you a little bit. But the way I understand, he currently has no spare cycles to actually write code in this.
I see.
So I would say a good first step is to get a local KubeVirt cluster API development cluster running with this stack. And then iterate from there. If you like, and if that's easier for you, I could pull this into one of our GitHub orgs as well. So we could collaborate there as well, if that helps you.
I guess for now we can simply clone the repo and try and.
But as soon as you reach the point where you can start collaborating, like filing PRs, and so let me know. then I will move this repo to, we have an organization, GitHub organization for actually collaborating. It's called Flatcar Hub. And we just moved this to Flatcar Hub, and then again you get full access, so you can basically work. And I'm also very helpful and interested in adding more folks. Like if you have more devs that need access to the repos, I wouldn't shy away just adding them as well. So I want to make it as low threshold for you folks as I can.
Yeah, so just to set a bit of expectation, Vipin and I were half of it. So it might be that we got for a moment distracted by other things. But first of all, yeah, so we are both also new to Capi, so it will take a little bit to get used to the project. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I need to understand how you replace the Bootstrap, the standard one, with the Ignition one, but probably it's in this branch that you are in
Correct.
this
Yes.
repo that you are.
So I think here, so this is the work where Johannan was splitting, creating like abstraction layers and split the two the one big provider into two separate providers. Yeah. So yeah. That's the point to start for that. And I think he even got a working stack, so Flatcar was booting at least with the provider stack that the two repos basically, and you can iterate on that.
Yeah. The other part that we can try is to create maybe a KubeVM with the CSX and Kubernetes. This is maybe not the first things to achieve, but
yeah,
that would be also nice things that we could try.
That's true. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think we have some stuff to do.
If you have any questions or encounter anything that looks weird, just ping me on Slack. So the rationale here is you might find it out in your own time in a week, or you might ask, and I might get Johanna to respond to the question within an hour. So please make use of me.
Yeah. One technical question. Is everyone in Europe from your team? Or
Yeah,
I'm asking because Pipin is in India, so for him it's not really, I don't know.
I can definitely, oh yeah, we can definitely reschedule this to earlier. That is fine. We can absolutely do that. Actually, I have an engineer in my team who's also checking in from India, so I'm well aware of the time zones. We can move it to earlier, no problem.
Yeah, that was my question, if there was somebody from the US but yeah, it will be a little bit easier for us to join this meeting.
Bipin, just out of curiosity, how much earlier would you prefer?
Maybe 3 hours early, probably. Would that be possible?
Come again?
3 hours.
3 hours earlier, so noon UTC. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that would be perfect. I think that would be around 5:30 in India in the evening. Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Then any more questions?
Not from my side, at least not now.
Cool. Bipin, you happy?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, my one clarification needed. So, does that guide with a tilt and kind cluster, is it completely working, or do we have some change?
This is the development environment that Johanna used to work on both repositories, so it is working.
Okay, so I can import those repositories by the tilt settings,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thanks. That's all.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for joining. We have this in a fortnightly cadence, so the next is in 2 weeks from now. But I am a regular in the main ClusterAPI meeting, which is at an ungodly time for Bipin, but for us it might work every Wednesday at 7 p.m. my time. So if there's anything to sync in between, we have Slack. As I said, I'm very responsive to pings on Slack or the core cluster API meeting.
Okay, of course.
Nice. Thank you, folks.
Okay, bye. Take care.
Bye.